Welcome back, travelers, to your referral roadmap. This podcast is dedicated to helping you unleash your personal and business revenue potential by cultivating referral relationships. In this 10-part series, we're giving you the tools to break you free from the productivity traps that keep you overwhelmed, overworked, and underfulfilled. If you've ever felt like no matter how hard you work, you're just spinning your wheels, stuck in a cycle of busyness instead of real progress, this series is for you. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. So if you're ready to trade burnout for real momentum, let's dive in. Today we're talking about the 80-20 rule, working smarter, not harder. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, says that approximately 80% of the outcomes result from 20% of the causes. So in a business context, this means that a small fraction of efforts often lead to the majority of results. For instance, 20% of customers may generate 80% of sales, or 20% of products may account for 80% of the profits. Recognizing and focusing on these vital few can significantly enhance efficiency and productivity. So, Athena, let's dive in. You have a story today, don't you?
I do, and actually, I'm going to do something I don't usually do.
Oh,
I'm going to actually tell a story that is fictitious, but it was
okay.
a good story that exemplifies the rule. And then I'm going to pull it into real life. So, those of you listening, I want to thank you for being here. We know this series is not everyone's favorite. I keep saying you're going to throw tomatoes at me because no, everybody's like, I don't want to focus on productivity, but it's powerful. It allows you to take your life back and allows you to be productive. And so we had to do it. So just bear with us here. All right. So we want to talk about 80-20. So I found this fictional story and I thought it had a good representation. So bear with me. But imagine you're Bob in an office, okay? So you're Bob and you're a diligent employee and you consistently feel slammed. And you spend your days doing emails, attending meetings, tracking your task, and handling everything that comes at you. Anybody ever feel like that, right? And you're surviving, like, right? Life is just boom, 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 boom. And you're just like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. That's Bob. We've all been Bob. But Bob, at the end of the week, is depressed, overwhelmed, not hitting his numbers that he needs to, and is wondering, I wonder if you guys have ever said this, what did I get done this week? Right? Where life controlled you, you didn't control life. But now Bob had a good coach, leader, who introduced him to this 80-20 rule and sat down with him and went through all of his tasks and asked Bob, what are the things that you have to do in a day that actually helps you achieve the results we need you to and you need to? What are those things? I call that prioritization. And then what are the things, Bob, that you're doing that are maybe necessary but not urgent? Let's list those things out. They're more trivial, right? What you have to do is clarify what is 20%. Bob needed to understand his 20% are the activities he does that helps him get closer to achieving his goals. The 80% is the work, or if you listen to this entire series, we'd call the pebbles, right? The pebbles, the things that still have to get done, but they're not the priorities. So what happens to Bob? When Bob realizes these are the things I have to focus on first, and I have to get these achieved, and then I have to make room for these other things, the 80-20 applies, and all of a sudden, and I know this is a simplified version here, so bear with me, but Bob starts achieving. He starts to feel like he's more in control, and he starts to have a light at the end of the tunnel to understand the direction he's going. Now, I wanted to give that fictional story, Jada, because I think it's a great representation because we've all been Bob. We've all been Bob. And I will say this, it is easy to be Bob in business and in life. It's easy to not know what your top 20% are. I really want the listeners to understand this because I don't want you to have guilt and shame if you're like, I struggle with understanding what my top 20% is. You are not alone. One of the most critical things I do for all of my consulting clients, no matter CEO or individual, is help them get the priorities right. So please understand that sounds really easy. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So I just want to give yourself some grace there, but grace with action. It's time to sit down and really start reflecting. What are the things that I have to get done? Those money making, life altering things that have to happen. And what are the other things, and how can I prioritize them different? So now I want to wrap it, Jada, if you don't mind, into like just a reality story.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna actually use myself. I used to be addicted to being busy. It meant if I was busy, therefore I was valuable. Okay. And I have talked about being a recovered workaholic. Yes, I work a lot, but I don't work like I used to. I accomplish more in a lot less time now. But I loved being busy, and I loved being able to tell everybody how busy I was, because it made me, well, being busy meant, honestly, in my case, I was being Bob and I was doing a lot of the 80, not the 20. And so what I realized is I was burnt out, I wasn't getting the results I wanted, etc. And when I sat back and had to ask myself, okay, Athena, what is that is critical? What is the 20% that's critical? When I learned that, and it was probably 2 decades ago now, I'm old, but about 2 decades ago, I started to really understand, if you focus on the 20%, not the 80%, you start to move the needle of your life and of your business. And so I really want us to kind of think through, as we look at the topic, working smarter, not harder. It is identifying those priorities in our life and business so that we can make the impact we want and start to analyze what we can get off our plate or what we're doing that's not having that impact. That's what I have done. I get asked all the time, how do you do it all? I am not Superwoman. I do not have more energy than anybody. None of that is true. I actually fight an autoimmune issue, and I'm tired and my body hurts. I am normal, just like you, but I'm an expert now at prioritization. And what I want you guys to understand, I'm teaching this from a place in my heart where I want you to understand the impact. There are things on your heart that you want to achieve in this life. There are talents and abilities that the busyness is covering up. There's relationships that you need to foster that the busyness is covering up. There's impact in this world that the busyness is covering up. So I beseech you to take the time and look at what is your 20%. Jada and I always say, this is not your practice life. You get one life. And every minute you choose, you're saying, yes, I'm trading a moment of my life I can never get back for this. Let's make sure it's the priority things. Let's make sure that you understand so you live an impactful life. Now, I will say as a disclaimer, that doesn't mean we don't get to do things that suck. We all have to do the things we don't like to do. We all have things that we like to call work, right? That are not fun. Jada, if she never had to do a prospecting call ever again, she would be happy, right? But, so there are things we have to do that we don't love. However, what are the priorities? So think about that. But hey, Jada, that's me saying lots of words, telling my story and giving the Bob story. Is there any science behind this before we get to the rubber meets the road?
There is. And I actually wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the 80-20 rule, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so understanding the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle, it really can significantly enhance business efficiency and personal productivity. So there's 3 compelling insights that I really wanted to walk through today. And
Okay,
one
perfect.
is the origin of the 80-20 rule, because I think it's important to understand where things come from. So in the late 19th century, the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto observed that 80% of Italy's land was owned by 20% of the population. He also noted that 20% of the pea pods in his garden produced 80% of the peas, leading to that formulation of the Pareto principle. So I thought that was just kind of a neat story and wanted to
What
share
is
that.
that? I had no idea that it was about land and peas.
Right? I
Wow,
thought
thank
that
you
was
for sharing
interesting.
that.
Of course. And then the second one really is the business application. So the 80/20 rule is prevalent in various business scenarios. So revenue generation, approximately 80% of the company's profits coming from 20% of its customers.
Mhm.
And I can link some data there too. And then productivity, 20% of its employees, often contributing 80% of the output, highlighting the importance of identifying and nurturing key talent. And I can link that as well. Then
Absolutely.
the third thing I wanted to talk through was software development. So in software engineering, it's observed that 80% of software errors are caused by 20% of the bugs. Addressing this critical 20% can lead to significant improvements in software reliability. So just showing that it really is the 80/20 rule is so consistent across many different
How
business
odd.
entities, right?
I have to say, thank you for that science because
Yeah,
that's odd.
right?
It's kind of weird to me that this 80 I didn't know the depth of that. I didn't know it went through to so many different genres.
Right?
Because the other thing that you alluded to it in the science, but I will tell you the 80/20 rule for your staff, your team, absolutely. I mean, you can we have seen that as leaders. 20% of your people typically are,
Yeah.
are the productivity people. But I'm like, this is odd to me. It's almost like it's gravity. Like it's something we can't
Everything in
avoid.
alignment.
I know it's not really gravity, but it feels like
Yeah.
that thing that it's like it's a law.
Yes.
Like we can't change it. Which is really interesting to me. That just tells me that scientifically prioritization is fundamental to success no matter what you're doing. Interesting. Okay, this one really got me. Software errors, that's not a human thing. That's a computer
With the
having the
computer.
same principle.
Yep.
Weird.
Right?
Weird.
I just thought that was really interesting. So I did want to share, it's not just, I mean, it is business, but it's not just sales. It's every aspect of business. And
Wow.
I thought that that
Wow.
was really
Okay.
interesting.
That one stumped me. I wasn't expecting that. That's really interesting. But I will say, as we start to look at the rubber meets the road, I think that should show us the importance as we're listening to this of how we really need to take this law, this theory, and look at where we need to apply it in our life, personally, professionally, anywhere in our life. And so I wasn't gonna share this story, but Jada, you got me going with the science.
Let's hear it.
So, I recently have started focusing on my health. Now, mind you, for years I've been like, I love the gym, so I go to the gym and I just try to kill it at the gym. I know you've worked out with me, and you're like, okay, she likes the gym, but I wasn't getting anywhere. You know what I mean? I was getting, buffer, but I wasn't losing the weight that I needed to lose as a person that was morbidly obese, right? And I'm not saying here that I wasn't beautiful or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying, but you just don't want to be morbidly obese. It's not healthy for you. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So recently in the last 8 months, I started doing the 80/20. I said 80 is the working out, the walking, the stuff I actually like to do. And the 20% is what I put in my face. So all of those years I was focusing on the 80%, Jada, and honestly doing really well at it, but not getting the result. So I switched my thinking in that, okay, I'm going to focus on the 20%, which is the food consumption that I'm doing, and not just caloric, but what food, what food for energy, etc. And now I'm still obese, but I have dropped at this point almost 65 pounds. That's an 80/20 rule right there.
There you go. Thank you for sharing that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it still sucks to have to count everything that goes in the mouth. You know what I mean? But whatever. That's fine. 80-20 rule. All right, you guys. So where does the rubber meet the road? How do we take this and do something with it? Because I think Jada made sure that we understand science says we better take this seriously. The number one thing in all seriousness, this is the thing that when I sit down with clients is difficult. And that is really starting to identify what is the highest impact task, behaviors, duties that you do. Now, I'll tell you why this is complicated, you guys. It's complicated because oftentimes we allow our emotions, our need to feel valued or important, to assign too much weight to too many tasks. Okay? I've done that before. So this is a pot talking to the kettle, y'all. So what you want to do is take the emotion out of it and really identify what are the things I have to do that bring me closer to my goals. So identify, sit down. You need to sit down. Do not do this on the fly. If you're listening today, please save this so you can sit down and have your book next to you, because you want to identify what are the things that are actually pushing me closer to my goal. So if you're in sales or you own a business, it better be money-making activities. Period. Right? Money-making activities. The things that generate leads, conversions, closures. Those are things that have to be critical. Now, if you are a CEO, your number one priority is your team. Recruitment, training, making sure that everybody on your team has a vision, has core values, they know where they're going. That is your highest impact. So you need to identify what are those things. Now, if you're listening right now and if you're like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, you got priorities too.
Mm-hmm.
You have key priorities. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and so people can disagree with me. But a key priority as a stay-at-home mom, if you're listening, isn't the dishes. It's the kids. Okay, now that is being said from an OCD, I hate dishes in the sink person. But I will tell you, again, just being transparent, most of you know my daughter is in a health crisis, and we don't know how long we'll have her. And so on the weekends where I usually was like, okay, everything has to be tidy, Jada, my 80-20 changed. My 20 now is, what are we going to do with Savannah? What are we going to do to make memories? What are we doing with her this weekend? And I make sure those things get done first, and then we can worry about the other things. Because I don't want to regret every minute. I don't know how many minutes I have, and I'm not going to regret them.
Yeah.
Right? So 80-20 applies to anything, but we have to sit down and we have to make those decisions. So I want you to do that. It sounds easier than it is. So please do that. Once you do that, can I tell you too, this is under the same point, but share it with somebody. You know, sit down with somebody and say, hey, this is my priorities in life. These are the things that I want to achieve. What do you get your feedback and get accountable to somebody, to those behaviors, right? Be accountable. I know, going back to the Savannah, my husband and I sat down and I said, look, I know we could work. There's all these things that we could justify of things we have to do on the weekends. And I said, but can we put her first? And we've both made a commitment to it. Right? It's just a commitment. That's what we're doing. And sometimes it puts us behind, but that's okay. We'll figure that out. So having that accountability and being on the same page. Number 2, prioritize and delegate. So once you prioritize and you understand, you identify, then you make sure that you get those priorities on your calendar. Okay? Get the priorities on your calendar. Get them so where you know what they are. I like to list them out, but get them on your calendar. And then the things that are less important, delegate those if possible. So if you are sole proprietor and you're like, yeah, that's nice, Athena, I don't get to delegate. I get it. I've been there. But look at the things that can wait. What could wait? Ask yourself that. What is not critical that can wait? And then if you are able to delegate, let it go. Don't get caught up in like, I have to own it all to feel important. Delegate. And if you hire the right people, they'll do it better than you anyway. Right?
Yeah.
So, My team, what they're responsible for, do it far better than I can do it. So delegate, and let that go. Now, I want to talk about that delegation too, because women who are out here, and I'm not trying to exclude you men, but women really struggle with this. And I'm talking to all my professional women listening. Professional women, I got to have a conversation with you about delegation. There is no such thing as work-life balance, and there's no such thing as getting it all done and that you can be amazing at it all. Sorry. You got to figure out what you're going to delegate. And one of my very good friends of over, oh my goodness, 30 years, Monica, she and I, many moons ago, had a conversation when we started to become financially solvent, and we were business women and we we're both moms. We had a conversation and said, we can't do it all. We have to hire housekeepers. We have to have nannies. We've got to hire yard people. And I will tell you, there's some people listening and they're like, I wish I could afford that. I get it if you can't. There's been times in my life where I couldn't. But maybe focusing on your 20 will get you closer to that ability. And for those of you who have hit that mark and you're feeling guilty, like, well, I feel guilty having somebody do that for me. I should be able to do that. I'm going to challenge you. If you think about 80-20, this is a time to delegate. And Monica and I still talk monthly on a Zoom call because she's in Portland, Oregon. And we both still have all of those things because we know as high-level career women, she's a high exec in Microsoft. We cannot be there for ourselves and our family if we are cleaning the house, doing the yard work. Something freaking has to give.
Yeah.
Something has to give. So if you're listening to this and you're in that spot, I want to give you permission to say, I need help. I can't do it all. It's okay. And if you're like, hey, I'm there, but I can't afford it, I get you. I have been there. So I would say focus on the things that can get you closer to having maybe the ability to do that. Anyway, just something I wanted to talk about because Monica and I talk about it often, even now, all of these decades later, about how we were so thankful that we gave each other permission to get the help. And then we started, Jada, to realize what a gift we were doing for the other people that had jobs because we couldn't do it all. So something to think about. And I know there's multiple places you can land in that spectrum, but I really wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that we can do for the 80-20 rule is streamline workflows. And what I mean by that is start looking at inefficiencies at work. What's inefficient? What's not working well? What could you systematize? What could you use AI to do to help you have more time? I want you to think about what could you eliminate? Is there stuff that's minutia, ridiculous stuff that can be eliminated? What does the processes look like? Look for areas of inefficiency to whack those out so that you can apply the 80-20 rule. Okay. Super important. We just had this issue in our home building company. We just hired a new accounting firm. And as we were digging into it, we found all kinds of minutia, ridiculous redundancy that made no sense, that was taking up energy and talent from somebody on our team. And so going in and looking at that, and for this person, looking at her 80-20 and realizing her 80 was ridiculous, and we had a bunch to work on for her. So looking at the streamlining the workflows. And then next here, set clear objectives. Now we talk about that. I know this seems redundant, but we talk about SMART goals, right? And Jada, I think would you be able to list that so I don't have to go into that for anybody who doesn't understand that? I appreciate that. But SMART goals, I didn't invent it. Don't even love it all the time, but it works. So set clear objectives and understand what you're going to do, keep them smart, and then measure it. Measure it. Make sure that anything that you're doing, that you're measuring the impact, and that you understand how long is it really taking? Am I getting the results? Really analyze these things. Okay. Since Jada and I and our team have started implementing EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you want to know more about it, I will introduce you to my coach. He's amazing, Rod. But we have really learned to set clear objectives and steps on how to get there. And it helps you truly focus in on the 80-20 rule. And then last but not least, right, regular review and adjust your focus and look at are my priorities still the correct? Do I need to reevaluate something? Has the market changed? Is the company moving in a different direction? Whatever that is, make sure that you're reviewing it and adapting and changing. Companies that are stagnant and complacent will fail. Companies that are consistently re-looking at, are we doing the right behaviors? Are we on the right path, etc., are the ones that will excel. Now, I am not talking about going crazy, because some entrepreneur, like, we're going this way, no, we're going this way, no, we're going this way. I'm not talking about that cray cray. What I'm talking about is looking at a 1 year at a time. What are our objectives? What are we going to achieve? Why is it that we want to achieve those things? And then taking those things into 90-day chunks and then getting those priorities done. And so every year revisit, what is my next year goal? What do I want to achieve? And what do I need to pivot and adjust? Stay flexible but focused is what I like to say. So all of that is our strategies, you guys, on how you can implement working smart, not just hard. Please do not get your emotional needs met by working hard. Please don't. I want us all to have a great work ethic. Okay. A great work ethic is important, but I would rather, now I don't get to do this because she has a baby, but I used to love to watch Jada post that she was at a pool in the afternoon in the middle of the week, because I knew she got all of her stuff done. And so she got to chill, right? That's her working smart, not hard. Now she doesn't get that because any extra minutes she's being a mom. So maybe I won't see you at the pool, but you get what I'm talking about. As leaders, can I talk to you? I'm not looking at micromanaging my people. I want them to do the objectives that are going to move the needle. Give them permission to do those things so that they can work smart and not hard. Just something to think about. But Jada, where do we go from here?
We'll want to challenge our travelers to pick one of the strategies and implement it today. Again, starting small. You're not going to climb Mount Everest in one day. And so picking at least one of those strategies and just starting. And then also wanted to invite everyone that's listening to download our free season 5 resource guide. It has all the goodies and resources that we've been talking about this season. So we're on episode 7. So everything up until now, and episode 8, 9, and 10 are also going to be on there. So maybe you download it and get a sneak peek. But anyways, just wanted to invite you all to download that. That'll be in the show notes below. And then also wanted to invite you to join our Success Revolution. It is our weekly blog fueled by relationships, referral, and revenue. We'll bring weekly growth strategies straight to your inbox. So that link will also be in the show notes. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can join us next week as Athena brings real talk and real strategies on the topic of from chaos to clarity, systems that keep you on track. So can't wait to see you next week.
Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.